That's like that. I'm writing the I don't know. The Google Translate everywhere.
All right. So I'm going to get started because it is, I think 5:32 or 5:33. I'm late by 3 minutes. So I'm going to get started. The dean did say that it's okay to add everybody, so that's good news. So you do have to get into Moodle first, because otherwise I do not know, I don't have a way to contact you to send you your permission number. So you do have to get into Moodle first. And do you guys remember the enrollment key into Moodle? It's Alan, all lowercase, okay, A-L-A-N. Okay, so make sure that you get into Moodle first. And once you get into Moodle, I can tell whether you're already in class or not. So if you're already in class, you're okay. If you're not already on roster, I will send you a permission number. And you do want to use that permission number as soon as you receive it. Probably sometime tonight or early tomorrow. Okay? So any questions about that? I changed my mind. I don't want to take this class anymore. I want to go to CRC. They have a better campus, better classrooms. All right. So this is where we were at last time. Okay. Why do we have to understand math in programming, right? Okay. So I do want to share with you a particular experience that I got through this winter in San Jose. There is an ICT educator conference. ICT stands for in Information Computer Technology. Okay, and in the workshop that I went to, it's basically a hacking class. Okay, now when you guys think about hacking, what do you think is hacking? What type of activity is hacking?
Stealing information.
Doing something that was not really the intention for that work.
Okay, well that's the original meaning of hacking, which is not necessarily malicious. You're just using something that it is not intended. So turning an old toaster oven into a surface mount soldering machine is hacking, but in a non-malicious way, because you're just utilizing a tool where it's not designed to do that. Okay, but in terms of hacking in computer or information technology, a lot of times it is malicious. Okay, you're breaking something, you're trying to do something that you're not supposed to. From the perspective of legally, or this information that should be private, and people are trying to get it. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm just kind of very quickly switch gear and show you the attempt, okay, or what I was taught to do in that workshop, and it was really cool. I actually learned how to do it because I have been teaching assembly language programming for a long time, so that stuff came fairly easy to me. I don't want you guys to do this. That's not the focus of this class, but I do want to show you guys what it is that I'm trying to do. Okay, so there are two programs here. Okay, one is a 32-bit version, the other one is 64-bit. So I'm just going to download one of these. Okay, and I'll go to a command line here to show you what the program does. Can you guys see well enough, what is displayed, or should I magnify? I'll just go ahead and magnify it. I think it's a little bit small, so I'm going to go to here, change the font size. Oops, hit the wrong button. Okay, one more time. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I think this is okay. So go to my downloads folder. There's a whole lot of junk here. And that particular program is, I cannot remember the name. There we go, hack 132. Okay, so I'm going to change the permission so I can at least run it. So u plus x hack like that. Okay, so I'm just going to run the program. So when you run the program, it is asking you, yeah, go ahead.
You're recording, yes?
I am recording, yes. I'm recording how I hack my own program. So okay. So when you run it, it is just waiting for you to enter a password of some kind. Okay? And if it matches what the program is expecting, it will just say that welcome back, authenticated user. And if it doesn't match, which I will demonstrate next, what it's going to do. Okay, so I'm just going to give it some random stuff here, and it will just say RTF DMCA. Read the fine Digital Millennium Copyright Act. Okay? Okay, so I don't want this message. I want to be authenticated as if I am a proper user of this program. So what am I going to do? Well, now, assuming I do not have the source code of this program. Sorry? Disassemble it. Okay, very good. But before I disassemble, I will try something else first. Okay, so I'm going to do something like this. I'll run the program, and I will see if it will break it by giving it more and more and more input. Okay? So just keep going and going and going. And finally, it has a segmentation fault. Okay? So this is good news, okay? Because if the program doesn't crash, okay, then it is not very likely that I have a way to break it. Now, if it does do a segmentation fault, which is a harmless way to crash the program, then it gives me an idea of, hey, there is a flaw. There's at least a flaw in this program, because a flawless program will not crash like this. Okay, instead, it would just say that your input has exceeded the number of characters that I'm expecting, or just silently detect that and go like, I'm not going to process this, right? So the fact that it's crashing means somebody forgot to check something. Yep.
Is the segmentation fault a response to the program or the operating system?
It's both. The program misbehaves, and then the operating system catches that, which turns into the segmentation fault.
I see. So it's not coded as a string inside the program, your program to respond to that.
Right. The program was doing something that it's not supposed to. But since the operating system is what we call a protected mode operating system, it catches it when the program is doing something that it's not supposed to, and it just groups all of those problems into one category, which is called a segmentation fault. Okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is to automate this, right? There's no better thing than to automate something. So I'm going to create a test file. So I use cat to test.in and just give it a whole bunch of stuff. Okay. So hopefully I don't have a whole lot of repeating patterns here. So I'm just going to try my best to randomize the actual input. Okay. Looks random enough to me. Okay. So this is all going to be in a file. So when I run the program, when I try to crash this program, I can now redirect the input from this file, and it still crashes, right? Okay, no big surprises here. The next thing that I'll do is what you said, okay? I'm going to use the debugger to let it crash, okay? But then I can tell a lot more about how it crashed, okay? I'm not going to go through the whole exercise today, but I just want to give you enough to have you guys, interested in computer security or hacking computers. Okay, so I'm going to use GDB. Okay, GDB hack 132.stripped. Now the extension stripped is only there because I want to make sure that I do not have any symbol table to link back to the source code or make any suggestion about how this program is supposed to behave. So this is a black box to me. I don't have the source code to it. Okay. So inside GDB, I can do the same thing. I can run the program, redirecting the input from test.in, and obviously it's going to crash again. Okay, segmentation fault. But this time, I got more information. The address that is crashing, what does it look like to you? These are all hexadecimal digits. 3139 3575. Okay. Do they look like printable characters to you in ASCII? They are.
They're numbers.
The threes are the numbers, and then the 7 is a lowercase, probably a lowercase letter, could be a punctuation. That part is not such a big deal because you can always just punch it in and find out, right? Because you can do something like this. Even in GDB, you can do this. You can say, print, and then use a char as a typecast, and then you can just say, okay, this is 7.5. What is 7.5 as a char? It is lowercase u. Is that okay? All right. So this is where I'm going to test those of you who have taken CISP 310 from me. Okay. So given the address that is crashing at, which is 31393575, how are those bytes are supposed to be arranged in memory? This has to do with the Indianness. Okay, so somebody forgot to put the cat back on this thing, so we'll see if this writes. Okay, so I'm just testing it. There we go. All right, so in memory we are looking at one byte that is 75 in hexadecimal. The next one is 35. The next one is 39 and 31. Okay. I have my text file, so I would much rather convert these back into characters first, right? This is the only one that's tricky because it's 75 and cannot remember exactly where the 75 is. 35 is the digit 5, the digit 9, and the digit 1. Okay? Is that okay? But because the entire 3-something series are digits except for 3, A, B, C, D, those are punctuations. Okay. So now I know which substring I should be searching for in the test input file. So hopefully I randomize things well enough that I don't find like 6 occurrences of this. Okay? So let's go ahead and do that. And I can do it from inside GDB because I can shell out to do a Vim. So let's see. So I'm searching for U5, what again? 91. Okay. And there it is. Okay, see the cursor, the little green thing? That's where these 4 bytes become the return address when the function is returning. Some kind of function is returning, and these 4 bytes, because of overwriting memory, these 4 bytes basically specifies the return address. Is that okay so far? Yeah. This is very promising, right? Because I can now see if I can control the content of these 4 bytes and make it jump to the location that it's not supposed to. Okay? This is causing it to crash because these 4 bytes becoming a single address, 32-bit address, is just la-la land, and you cannot execute in la-la land, and that's what's causing the segmentation fault. But what if I can craft these 4 bytes to be a particular position in the program that is after the proper authentication? Are you guys kind of getting the idea? Okay. So the question is, how do we make that happen? So I want to save this first. Okay. Well, maybe not. I can just say, I'll replace these 4 characters with to do just so that I remember where I'm supposed to mess around with. Okay. So now I can go back to GDB, and what I'll do is I'm going to look for labels. So let's see if main is a label here. Nope. Okay.
When you strip out the debugging, are there still going to be labels?
Sorry?
When you said the dot strip extension took out the symbols.
It took out all the symbols.
So wouldn't that take out the labels also?
It would have taken out I think all of the labels. But the entry point should still be there. Okay, there are ways to look into it. So let's see if this will help. Not hex dump. Nope. I'm looking at all the commands that can do dumps. It's obj dump. There we go. Obj dump. What is the name? Oh, pack. Okay, so I want to look at a particular thing. -x may be helpful. Disassemble may be helpful. I'll do a -x first to look at all the headers. There we go. So now we get a whole bunch of symbols, and dot text is one segment that is particularly useful. But this is how you can do it. Okay, I'm not finishing this entire thing today, but once I can find out where the main program is, I can then start to look into the addresses. I'm looking for a return address to craft into the input file so that I can just force the program to go back to the place after the authentication is successful. Okay? So I'm going to continue this exercise maybe next time, because this is not what we are really going to do in this class. Okay? But it is related to this class. How is this related to this class? Remember automatic verification that we talked about last time? A way to describe the proper behavior of a program. This program does not behave correctly. It should have caught the input is too long and just say, I'm not going to process this. Yep.
So whoever made the array is out of bounds?
Well, it's not particular. It's not the array that is the issue. It's the code that read into the array that is the issue.
So
It doesn't have bound checking. It just say, okay, read from standard in, put it into this array. But when you specify an array in C and C++, you are only specifying the beginning of the entire array. You're not going to specify the actual length unless there is an explicit parameter to say up to how many bytes should I read. Yep.
So this is purely like a design flaw then, based off like how the program was meant, because like if they actually...
It's lazy programming.
So standard
lazy evaluation.
It's lazy programming, okay? Now, lazy programming usually come from reading books like C++ programming for dummies, right? People just copy and paste code. In a book, there's a section called authentication, okay? And people say, oh, I need authentication code for my program. Copy and paste. So there are certain patterns that hackers can actually identify and go like, oh, okay, these are common coding techniques for people who are too lazy to come up with their own code and think about security and stuff like that. Okay, so this is a starting point of how programs are hacked. Now, in the real world, of course, this is not the case. Okay, so in the real world, you're not going to read from standard in the password or something like that. But instead, you will have a browser, for instance, okay, downloading a bitmap file and try to display that. Okay, but in the process of parsing a file that is supposed to be just a JPEG file or PNG file, someone can craft stuff into that file that is intentionally breaking the specification to see if the program is going to break. If it does break, give you a segmentation fault, then those people can go through the same exercise that I'm going through to find out how the program is breaking, and is there a way to exploit the way the program is written. Okay? But everything stems from one thing. Okay? There's no specification of what the program is supposed to do, and there's no verification that the program is doing what it is supposed to. Okay? And that part relates to cisp440, because remember, this is the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail is we should be able to mathematically express what a program is supposed to do, and mathematically be able to prove that the program either does or does not do it. Okay? And that's a quote from Yoda. Do or do not, right?
There's no trying.
There's no trying, there's no testing either. There are no test cases. Do or do not. Okay? Does your program do this or not? Okay, so this is a little quick demonstration to kind of relate this class, CISP440, to a seemingly unrelated class, which is CISP310. Okay, because that's assembly language programming. Yep.
Are there differences between the 32-bit crack program and the 64-bit crack program? Would it be the same process?
It will be the same process, but the different registers will be corrupted in a different way. So you kind of have to understand how the stack is being used by a program, and in 64-bit mode, it is a little bit different. So you kind of have to use a different tactic on it. So, but it's only at the tactical level that is different. From the strategic level, it is the same. Yep. So that's that brings us back to bugs and vulnerabilities, it's basically people overlooking, certain aspects of their program. All right, so getting back to the main portion of this class, now we get into the boring stuff. Okay, the first boring thing that we are going to talk into is set theory. How many people have learned something about set theory in high school or in other classes? A few, okay, not a whole lot. Okay, that's okay, it's not a big deal. That's why we have this class. But before we talk about, set theory, let's talk about the rationale of set theory. I know that this is a lot of text. I have been told by multiple people that I should include more pictures, but that takes time and, copyright stuff and whatnot. Okay, but set theory is actually very important because it is the foundation of most branches of mathematics, particularly the stuff that matters to computer science people. Okay, so we have to get this stuff done first. Okay? It's not really particularly difficult, it's just that you have to get used to the thinking of set operations. So we'll go ahead and just kind of go through this. Okay, the other part, this part here, I'll just kind of summarize what this paragraph is talking about. This paragraph is basically just saying that you may not be able to apply set theory or predicate calculus and whatnot in real life programming. Okay, but this is training for your logical thinking, analytical skills, and stuff like that. And that stuff is going to be useful regardless of what you're going to do in STEM in general. Okay, because you need all those skills. So this class, you can look at this class as Tai Chi. Okay, and you are on your way to become a police officer. So when are you going to use Tai Chi against a person that you want to arrest? Almost never, right? So how would Tai Chi still be useful? Well, in practice you have self-discipline because you have to have that.
You'd be at peace of mind when you're doing the arrest.
You can stay calm. You can stay more calm than the person who did not do Tai Chi, right? So that gives you an edge because you can think straighter. Okay, not straight, but straighter. Okay, you just need that edge. You don't have to be the perfect, rational person. You just have to have that edge. But it also helps to move your joints, your muscles, and stuff like that. Okay, so if you think about two police officers, one is just eating donuts and watching TV when during off time, and the other guy is going like Tai Chi, yoga, and all the other stuff. Who would make a better officer when it's time to actually arrest somebody?
Yoda.
No, the beer guy, right? The beer guy is almost bulletproof. Or certain parts of the body is almost bulletproof. No, but this is what it is, okay? This is what this class really is. It's Tai Chi, it's yoga, okay? You may not be able to use it directly in your career, but it gives you a lot more training, to get the skills that will be beneficial to you. Gives you that extra edge. I don't need that extra edge. All right, so next thing is, to go back and revisit Boolean operators. Okay, this should be boring. If you do not find this boring, we are in big trouble. I say that a lot in my classes. All right, so we have conjunction. Conjunction is basically just and. In C and C++, it's double ampersand, not a single one. But in this class, I use this little inverted V symbol as conjunction. Okay, that's the mathematical notation for conjunction. Disjunction looks like a V, okay, but it's a bar in C and C++. Logical negation is exclamation point in C and C++, but in this class, we use this kind of like a cliff-shaped symbol for negation. These are standardized symbols used in mathematics for these particular operators. So I did not invent this at all, and you will find these symbols used in other publications. Okay. So now we talk about the truth tables. Okay, the truth table. Now this one is a little bit different compared to C and C++, because in C and C++, false is 0. But what is true in C and C++?
Means everything else but.
Everything else, right? Non-zero is true. So in this class, I specifically use 1 to represent true. Okay, so that's a deviation from C and C++. But that's a truth table. Okay, if you have false, then not false is true. If you have true, then not true is false. Okay, nothing really, groundbreaking. Stuff that you should already know. Okay, conjunction, which is and. Logical and is easy. Okay, false and false is false. False and true is false. True and false is false. True and true is the only case where you get true. Okay, no big surprises here other than the symbol is now different. Okay, and with disjunction, it's kind of the other way around. The only time we get a false as a result is when you have false or false. For all the other cases, if at least one side is true, you get true as a result. Okay. Once again, nothing really surprising. So now we get to implication. Implication is x, not x or y, okay, which is also known as x implies y. Okay, so you can call it one way or another. In implication, it doesn't seem to make any sense. Okay, at first it may not make any sense at all, because in implication we say that false implies false is true. We say false implies true is true. The only time the implication itself is false is when you have a true implies false, then the statement itself is false. And then the last one is true implies true, which is also true. Okay, so I think this one may require a little bit of explanation. Okay, what is implication? How do you use the word implies in English?
You're saying that if P kind of
It's an
Q,
assumption.
so Q, like if P then Q.
Okay.
Q is the implication. When
P is the antecedent, and then the other one is the result or whatever you're implying. Okay, so give me some examples.
Somebody has an umbrella. That implies that it's raining outside.
Okay, well, but that's kind of that's inference. Okay, that's inferring something based on a statement that is already true. Now, implication itself doesn't have to be true. Yep.
Cow pulls you over, that implies you did something wrong.
Okay, well, I'm going to go for something that is completely awkward and weird. Yep, go ahead.
Honest Harry implies that negative Jill is a bad person.
Say that again?
Positive Harry, so he's a good guy, nice, honest, implies that negative Jill, I think I said Jill, is a bad person. So the negative Jill.
Okay.
Wait, positive Harry never mentioned.
Okay, maybe something a little more tangible then. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to give you a statement. Remember from last class, what is a statement? Is a statement an assertion that has to be true? Or it's just something that tech claims, okay? It can be true, it can be false, right? Okay, so I'm going to give you a implication statement. And I'm looking for mouse pad. That's my online whiteboard thingy. Okay, so I'm going to write this statement here. So I'm going to say the sky is, I used to use purple, so any favorite,
Fuchsia.
nonsensical fuchsia. Okay, how do you spell fuchsia? CIA. Okay, so if the sky is fuchsia in color, CHIA,
Yeah.
okay, fuchsia. No, no, that doesn't look right.
CHSIA.
CHSIA.
Yeah.
It's getting worse.
That's it. That's it. I promise.
Yes, I actually know it.
You only find this.
I told you.
You're right. Okay, and there are different shades too. All right. I am sorry that I didn't trust you. Okay, if the sky is fuchsia, then everyone fails CISP. Okay, so this is my statement. Okay, so at the beginning of the semester, you guys pay me $10 each and say, Tech, give me some words of wisdom. And I give you one statement, which is, if the sky is fuchsia, then everyone fails CISP 440.
Money back.
Okay, first of all, the most important part is I did not say anything about causal relationship. I did not say the sky being purple is the reason why everybody fails CISP 440. I'm simply linking two statements to form a new statement. The first statement is the sky is purple or the sky is fuchsia. Okay? The sky is fuchsia by itself is a statement. It can be a true statement, it can be a false statement. Is that okay? Because it's just a statement, it can be true or false. The second statement is everyone fails CISP 440, which is also just a statement. It can be true, it can be false. Okay? By itself is not an assertion. So given these two sub-expressions or sub-statements, the entire statement is just linking them and say that if the sky is fuchsia, then everyone fails CISP 440. It doesn't say why that is the case. There's no particular reason. Okay, it is simply a statement saying that this is what it means. Okay, the sky is fuchsia implies everyone fails CISP 440. Is that okay? So let's say at the end of the semester, okay, if this statement turns out to be true, I keep your $10. If this statement turns out to be false, I refund you and then I give you something else back. Okay, I'll give you a good grade. Not necessarily an A, but I'll give you a good grade. Okay, okay, so you want to know, so you have to determine, is this statement true or not at the end of the semester? Is that okay? There are 4 possible outcomes at the end of the semester. And you have to say, okay, with each outcome, does it say that this statement is true or not? Okay. So let's go ahead and take a look at the 4 possible combinations. The first combination is the sky is not fuchsia, and not everybody fails CISP 440. So in this case, can you get your money back? Because the statement itself is not true. Yes.
No.
No, you cannot get your money back. Because if the sky is not fuchsia, I didn't say a single thing about what would happen. Right? Isn't that how you use the word implies? Okay, if the first part is not true, then the second part can be anything. Okay, so that really accounts for 2 cases, because as long as the sky is not fuchsia, whatever happens doesn't really matter. My statement still stands. It is still true. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
What if the sky is actually fuchsia? Then it becomes important. Because if the sky is actually fuchsia and everybody actually fails the class, can you get your money back? No, because this is consistent with the statement itself. If the sky is fuchsia and the sky actually is fuchsia, then everybody fails CISP 440 and everybody actually fails CISP 440. Then the statement is actually true. It proves to be true. The only time you can get your money back, because the statement itself is not true, is the sky is actually fuchsia, but at least one person does not fail CISP 440. Okay, that is the only case when the statement itself, the implication itself, is false. Is that okay? All right, so if you look at these, with all the true and false and whatnot, does that look like kind of like a truth table to you? It does, right? So now, what we'll do is we'll label the first column, I'll just call it X, I'll column the next column y, and I'll label this column based on the formula of implication, which is not x or y. Is that okay? Does that look familiar to you? I cannot enter the special math symbols in a plain text editor, so this has to do it. Okay. All right. So can someone tell me that if x is true and y is false, what is not x or y?
False.
It is false. What about this one? When x is true and y is also true?
True.
Okay, the whole thing is true. And because we are using the negation of x, and there's a disjunction, every time x is a false, the entire thing has to be true. Does that make any sense? Okay. So the first two is also true. From the truth table, do you see the rationale of what I just talked about? The only time you can get your money back is when it is false.
So when the initial premise is true, but whatever was supposed to be the conclusion turns out to be false, that's the only thing.
Then the implication itself as a statement is false. Yep. Is that part okay?
Why is the first one true again? Why is the first one true?
Because when x is false, not x is true, and if not x is true, it doesn't matter. Yeah, because it's a disjunction.
Right.
If at least one side is true, the whole thing has to be true. But this is called implication. So the other way to express this is not to say not x or y, which is kind of a clumsy way to say that. You can say x implies y. It means exactly the same thing in terms of mathematics. Is that okay? All right. Yep.
So basically, instead of writing not x or y, x implies y is basically the same type of phrase.
The symbol for that is double arrow, double bar, and then an arrow. So if I want to approximate that using text, it would be like this.
Okay.
Yep.
Can you draw on the board? The actual symbol?
Yeah, it's just it's a double arrow to the right. Literally just that. Well, in this class, I use this symbol because the single arrow has a different meaning. So that's why I have to use a double arrow. Double bar arrow, not double-sided. Are there any questions about implication? Because this is one of the quote-unquote logical operators that is not defined in C or C++, and it also has a lot of room for ambiguation or confusion, because a lot of times when people say, read if the sky is future, then everyone fails cisp440, or they can read it as the sky is future implies everyone fails cisp440. In their mind, they automatically say, oh, there has to be a causal relationship. That's not what an implication is. An implication is just saying, this is a statement, this is another statement. This statement being true means the other statement has to be true. That's all it really is saying. Because if the first statement is not true, we don't know what's going to happen with the second one. Yep.
So then this operator only evaluates whether the implication is false or not in the given situation. I'm understanding all this correctly.
This operator is really, mechanically speaking, it's the same thing as not x or y. X implies y is exactly the same thing as not x or y. And it is defined by the truth table as what we see on the board right now, on the projector. Okay? Yep.
So when you say it's not defined in C++, you can define it, right? You just do.
Right.
Okay.
Well, you can use a pound define and. Yes, you can define it, but it's not built into the language.
Okay.
All right, good, very good. So, if you go back to the notes here, you can definitely see that the notation is just x and then a double bar, right arrow to y. And once again, to figure out how I entered this in LaTeX, you just right click on it and go to show math as tech commands. And that will show you it is x \uppercase R right arrow y. because a lowercase right arrow will give you a single bar arrow instead of a double bar arrow. Okay. But this is something that you will probably find, to be a common theme. It's like, I will show you how it looks on the projector. If you right click and say, show the text command, it will show you how you can enter that in Moodle when you're doing your homework. All right. So the next one is a stronger connection. The stronger connection has a double bar here. It is known as equivalent to. So equivalent to is basically saying x implies y and y implies x. Now this is a much stronger connection because it means if one is true, the other one has to be true. If one is false, the other one has to be false as well. Okay, it's called it is equivalent to. X is equivalent to y is exactly that. Any other questions about these operators?
Is this one the same? Is it similar to a if and only if?
It is the same as if and only if, yes. Or IFF. Okay, so that's the end of this slide. We are just revisiting most of the common logical operators, and then we add two more on top of that. One is implies, and the other one is equivalent to. Okay, any questions? Okay, so now we have negation as an operator, but that doesn't count because it's a unary operator. Let's focus on binary operators, which means it needs two values to work on. Okay, how many operators can we possibly have with just Boolean logic? Okay, so if you think about it, we have one value, we have some kind of operator, we have another value. Okay, so how many unique operators can we actually define?
Plus or minus?
Well, let's think about it. Okay, when this is true, this can be false, can be true, right? When this is false, the other one can be false or true because these two are independent variables. One does not determine the other value, so they are completely independent. Okay. While this is true and this is false, the operator can be true or false, right? And the same thing applies to the other four rows. So how many unique operators can I define? In other words, how many unique truth tables can I come up with by using only two variables and one operator? It's 2 to the power of 4. So there are 16 unique binary operators. Okay, exclusive OR is 1, right? Okay, OR is 1, AND is 1, implies is 1, is equivalent to is 1. So those are the more common ones. But there are some really odd ones like NAND, NOR, and so on. And then there are some that doesn't even make any sense, and we don't even touch those, right? But potentially there are 16 of these operators. Okay, of the 16, we use maybe about, I don't know, 7 or 8. Okay. All right, moving on. So now we can start on set theory. So the rationale of set theory is, well, it doesn't really have any reason to exist all by itself. Okay, by itself it doesn't do any good. On the other hand, it is the foundation of the more complex theories that we're going to go through in this class. So it is useful, when we talk about those. A set is an unordered collection of any number of unique elements. Okay, now that is a sentence on its own. It is it needs some explanation. Unordered means when you display or when you list the items inside a set, the ordering is not important at all. Okay, so if you want to talk about a set of the numbers 1, 2, and 3, it can be listed as 1, 2, 3. It can be listed as 3, 2, 1, 2, 1, 3, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, and so on. Okay, the ordering does not matter. They are all considered the same set. Unique means a single set cannot have two elements of the same value. Okay, so the elements of a set must be unique. They all have to be different. So 1, 1 would not make a set. Okay, a set cannot contain 1 and 1 because they are exactly the same. Okay. Any number is kind of tricky as well because it means a set as a container can have nothing in it. It will still be a set. In that case, it is called an empty set, which is not really surprising, right? And there are also sets that have infinite number of items, which is okay as well. Okay, we just need to know what is in a set, but it can be nothing, can also have an infinite number of items. Like if I say the set of all integers, okay, how many elements do I have in the set of all integers? It's an infinite number, right? There's no end to it. Yep.
No negative numbers?
You can have negative numbers.
No negative numbers in a set of elements.
Because it's counting, you cannot have negative numbers. Yep. All right. So I'm going to use an example in this case. So an example, by convention, this is just convention. The symbol for a particular set is usually an uppercase letter in English. Okay, it's just a convention, but we're going to use that convention in this class. So in this case, we have a particular set here. This is a set of cars that I like. Okay, it has 3 elements. So T is the symbol for the entire set. The open and closed curly brace, those are the delimiters of the content of a set. Okay, so inside the curly braces, I use basically a list of items separated by commas. So in this case, we have a set of 3 elements, and the ordering does not matter. I can say MR2, Civic, Miata. It will be exactly the same set as what I have on the projector. Is that okay? So just notation. This is just about notation. We use curly braces to contain the list of what is inside the set, and then within we use commas to separate the items. Okay. The next concept is the empty set is represented by open and closed curly brace all by themselves, which is not exactly surprising. So the next operator is the concept of in, okay, which is represented by this little kind of weird symbol. It looks like an E, but not quite, okay? That's the element of operator. So in this case, Miata is an element of T. Once again, it's a statement. It is not an assertion. It is not saying that Miata is in the set of T. It is merely saying it's a statement. It can be true that Miata is actually in the set T, or it can be false where Miata is not in the set T. Okay, so you have to remember, this is just like the logical operator. Okay, the result of this, Miata is an element of T, is either true or false. It is not an assertion. I am not putting an item into the set T. I'm merely making a statement that can be true or false. Okay. But in this case, this statement is in fact true. So that's why in the text here, I say the following are true expressions or true statements. Skylark is not an element of T is true because do you see Skylark in that set? It's not, for a very, very good reason. In fact, I don't even want to mention Buick, the B word. Sorry?
It's Skylark's guitar.
Uh-oh.
Which model did you own?
I haven't owned a Skylark, but they're cool.
I had the honor of having the 1981 model of Buick Skylark, which is the first of all the GM cars to have the engine transposed. So instead of longitudinal, they're transposed. But GM never really bothered to think about this when they rotated the engine. So the distributor is facing to the firewall side, okay? And it still had a distributor. If it didn't, it's okay, okay? So with a distributor, what do you have to do when you maintain your engine? You have to check and adjust to the timing, right? The timing belt is all the way to the front, but the adjustment is all the way to the back with a lock nut that you cannot really see. So you have to feel your way, to loosen the lock nut, okay, so that you can actually rotate the distributor.
You have to
But
have
while
a-
you're rotating the distributor, you cannot see the timing mark because it's somewhere else. So you need a friend to help you out, to tell you, adjust it a little more to the left, a little more to the left, to the right, okay? But that's not why it is not in this set. The thermostat housing. Okay, just imagine this. Okay, so so this is I'm facing. This is the light is facing this way. So I'm facing the engine this way. Okay, so you'll be leaning over, okay, to adjust the distributor, while your friends is screaming at you, go like, no, too much, back up a little bit. Which way? I don't know. Okay, and the distributor, the thermostat housing is right here. So you stand a very good chance of burning yourself where it is tender. So there are good reasons why Skylark is not on. And that car died a horrible death that it deserved. Okay, the following expressions are false. Okay, so we are talking about expressions. Remember, these are statements. They can be true, they can be false. So MR2 is not an element of T is false because it really is an element. Okay, and the next one is Pathfinder is an element of T is false because it is not a part of that set. I just don't try figure parts. In case you haven't noticed, every part in there are kind of small. When I talk about Civic, I talk about EG or before, not the later ones. If you don't know what is an EG, that's okay. That's okay too. That will not be in the quiz test. Okay, so what if you have a situation where you cannot enumerate and actually list all the elements? Okay, for instance, what if I want to say that E is a set of all even numbers? Well, you cannot give me a list, a complete list of all even numbers, because there's an infinite number of even numbers. Okay? So this is the way to do it. So the way you do it is to describe properties of elements in the set. Instead of giving me an actual list of everything in the set, you just describe what makes an element in the set. So in this case, the way you read this is, the set has elements X, but what is X in this set? What is each element in this particular set? Each element in this set has to be an element of the integer set. The Z thing is basically the set of all integers. And X mod 2 has to be a 0. In other words, the remainder of X divided by 2 has to be 0. So all elements in this particular set has to meet these requirements. Because it's a conjunction, so they both have to be true. So are there any questions about the set E and how you can specify just the properties of elements in a set, but not quite, listing everything out? Yeah.
That's a personal question. Why is mod such a popular operator in the programming languages? And is it like such an easy thing to implement, or how come it's nowhere in math you really deal with the mod, but in computer science it's always there?
Well, there are several reasons. The first reason is it is free. Okay, the divide instruction of most instruction sets will give you both the quotient and the remainder at the same time. So getting the remainder is actually free. Whenever you do a division, it has a remainder already. It's just that in C and C++, we toss away one or the other. So when you say x/y, we keep the quotient, but we ignore the remainder altogether. When you say x% y, we take the remainder, but then we throw away the quotient.
Okay.
But most division operations or instructions in assembly will give you both at the same time.
Okay.
Because the process of going through division will automatically give you both the quotient and the remainder. The remainder is free because at the end of the division process, you have that much left, right? The other reason why mod is useful as a concept, or modulus is a concept, is in computer science and anything that is discrete, which means limited, not infinite. you can only allocate a certain number of digits to represent, say, integers. So when we talk about int in C and C++, it's a misnomer. It is not correct. Because true integers do not have bounds. But when you use integers in C and C++, what do you have?
Limits.
Upper limits and lower limits, right? What happens when you add one when the number is already at its maximum?
It's going to become a
It
negative.
quote-unquote wraps around.
Yeah.
But wrapping around can also be seen as a modulus operation. You are just modding the number by 2 to the power of the number of bits that you choose to use to represent integers.
Okay.
That's why mod is so useful, because we are only using modulus arithmetics when we are talking about actual processors. Addition is not really just addition, it is addition in the context of modulus arithmetics. We just don't usually realize or think about it. Okay. And of course, mod is also useful because you can use it to determine whether a number is a factor of another number. Because if the remainder is 0, it is a factor. If it's non-zero, it is not a factor. So it is useful to determine whether a number is prime or not, right? Why do you think prime numbers are useful in computer science?
Security.
For security, exactly. Because key pair encryption relies on prime numbers. Okay. So if you can factor numbers really fast, and you can find huge prime numbers really fast, you can crack encryption in no time. So that's another reason why mod is kind of significant, because the operation itself may not be that significant, but a lot of concepts built up upon the concept of modulus or the remainder of a division.
Okay, thank you.
Those are good questions. I like it. I like it when you guys ask why. Sometimes I don't know, then I would just say I don't know or Google it. But sometimes if I so happen to have some exposure to it, I will let you know what I know.
Thank you.
Which is not much. Okay, so with all of those concepts, now we can talk about intersection and union. Okay, these are operations not on elements of a set, but these operate on sets themselves. Okay, so union and intersection, they will operate on 2 different sets and will give you the result is another set. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at this. The first one that we look at is W. W is the intersection of x and xy. X is a set, y is a set. W is the result of intersecting x with y. Okay? So the definition of this is simply saying, every element of W has to be an element that is found in x, and it also has to be an element that is found in y. That's it. Those are the common elements between the 2 sets. Is that okay? The most important part is W itself is a set. The result of the operation is a set. Is that okay? All right. Moving on to union, which is kind of easy too, because it's really kind of like the flip side of it. So if Z is the union of x, y as sets, then the elements of Z can be an element of x, or it can be an element of y. In other words, if you can find x in x or y, I almost said either, which is incorrect. Okay, so if you can find an element in x or in y, then it belongs in Z, which is the union. Are we doing okay so far? Yep. Go ahead.
What if we have a repetition of one?
Then it becomes just. Then you will have one single instance in the union. That's a good question. Let me just give you an example. So I'm going to use this, not that, but this one as an example. Okay, so I'm just giving you one. So 1, 2, 3 is one set. Okay, and we'll say union, because I cannot really type the U. Well, I suppose I can use the uppercase U to kind of imitate that. And then the other one is, let's say 1, 3, 5. Okay. So the result of the union of these 2 sets of numbers is going to be 1, 2, 3, 5. Is that okay?
What happened to the other one? What happened to the other one?
They merge.
Because all elements of a set has to be unique.
You can't repeat.
You cannot repeat.
Right.
Yeah. Is that okay? All right. That's a good question. It's good to have these questions to clarify what happens when we have common elements between the two. Okay. So here we have another set of cars and models and stuff like that. So let's say G is a set of cars that George likes. Okay. So George likes, not this George, but another George that I know. Okay. Because I don't want people to think that this George likes MDX and cars like that. You may end up liking that, but it's not you. Okay, so G has MDX, Miata, and 745, BMW 745. Then we can talk about the intersection and also the union. So when we talk about the union, it means the union would be cars that Tech or George likes. Okay. Doesn't have to be both, okay? If at least one of us, between me and George, likes, it belongs to the union. So in this case, the union of these two is going to be Miata, 745, Civic, MDX, and M Archer. The intersection, on the other hand, would be cars that both of us like. And in this case, only Miata is in the intersection. Is that okay? All right. So the other thing you can also do is try to visualize the concept. Okay, so this is called a Venn diagram. How many people know at least the concept of a Venn diagram? Okay, so it's a nice way to look at things because it's really kind of graphical. So for visual learners, this is a whole lot better than those mumbling, jumbling text and weird symbols and stuff, right? So if these are the two sets, okay, so this is one set which is blue. And this is another set which is pink, and this part here is kind of the overlapping section. So the overlapping section, which is kind of highlighted here as black, that's the intersection. That's the inverted U thingy. Okay, so anything that is in both sets will be the intersection. The union, on the other hand, is the entire thing. Okay, because if anything is in at least one of the two sets, it is in the union. Yep. Thank you. Almost forgot. And this is 440. And we got enough time to do it. How much time do we have?
6:50. We got 20 more minutes.
Oh, we got plenty of time. We got 15 minutes. All right. Now, you can also do quote-unquote subtraction, which is called difference in a set. So in this case, I have D defined as the difference between X and Y, or X minus Y. Now in this case, you can see that in order to be in X minus Y, an element has to be found in X but not in Y. That's the concept of difference in terms of sets. And if you look at the picture, if you look at the Venn diagram, the black version shows you what is the subtraction. It's the blue minus the pink. Because it is only representing stuff that is in the blue one, but not in the pink one.
You mean purple, right?
Purple, pink. Well,
This is
yeah,
blue over
purple.
there.
Okay. Fuchsia, Hopefully I don't have any art new media students in this class. Yep.
So that means that y minus x will be the other side.
Sorry?
Y minus x will be the other side.
Will be the other side, correct. And then we have the concept of a subset of, okay? So subset of is basically saying if a set is, B is a subset of another set if you can, all elements of one particular set can be found in the other set. Okay. Okay, so let's just take a look at this one. If B is a subset of A, then the following has to be true. Everything that you find in B can also be found in A. Does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because in the Venn diagram, okay, I didn't actually draw that one. I should have drawn it. So if A, okay, in this case, if B is a subset of A, okay, so this would be the subset itself, which is B, and the outer one is A. Yep.
If A was not a subset of B, if it has other elements other than the one that contains B, what will be the result of B minus A? Will it ignore the ones that don't belong to B, or is it impossible?
Can you ask the question again? If B is not a subset of A?
If A, just like looking at that equation, if
Okay.
A is not a subset of B and has extra elements that don't belong to B, what will the result be?
Okay.
If A would contain other elements that don't
Okay, let me just
belong
write
to
down
B.
what you said, okay? If A is not a subset of B,
Yeah, then B minus A, what would be the result of?
then what is B minus A? Okay, that's a good question. Okay, so if A is not a subset of B, it merely means that not all elements of A can be found in B. That's
Yes.
basically what it's saying,
Yeah.
right? So not all elements of A can be found in B, and B minus A can be anything.
Yeah,
It
what
doesn't
will-
have to be an empty set, but it can also be anything.
What will happen with those elements that don't belong to B? Just they let's just say it's 1, 2, and 3 in a B, and the A will be 5 and 6.
Okay, let's think about graphically. Let's think about the scenarios. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's just say that A is not a subset of B is true.
Yes,
Okay,
it's
because
true.
because subset of is once again is a statement. It can be true or false.
Yeah, it's
okay,
true.
so if A is not a subset of B, there are several cases where that is true, right? Okay, this is A. This is B.
Yeah.
They share some elements, but yet there are things that are unique to A that is not found in B.
Okay. Yeah.
So in this case, what is going to be B minus A? Things that are in B but not in A.
Okay. So that makes sense.
This would be B minus A,
Thank
right?
you. Yeah, that makes sense.
But that's not the only case, because you can also have A having absolutely nothing to do with B. Okay, this is A, this is B. They do not even overlap in any way. So in this case, B minus A is just B all by itself because they don't share anything. Is that okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Any other? Yep, go ahead.
And if we do A minus B, it's going to be A then?
In the second case, yes.
Okay.
In the second case, A minus B is just A because they don't share anything. So when you're asking what is in A but not in B, everything in A because they don't share anything.
Ah, okay.
Right. Go ahead, and then you.
Is there another case where B is a subset of A? Because we know A is not a subset
Right.
of B.
There's a third case where, because the premise is A is not a subset of B, which means B can be a subset of A. Okay? So when B is a subset of A, what is B minus A?
0.
It'll be an empty set. There's nothing. Because everything in B is also in A. So in this case, B minus A is an empty set. So that means you can't really say much when all you can tell me is A is not a subset of B. Then B minus A can have no elements, can be the entire B. It can also be just a part of B. So I cannot give you a whole lot of information based on just knowing that A is not a subset of B. Okay. Yep, go ahead.
A and B are equivalent. Would it still be okay to say that A is a subset of B and B is a subset?
That's a very good question. So what you're asking is, what if A and B are really the same?
Same, right.
Okay. So what if George and I like exactly the same cars? Okay. And then, so the question is, can we still call it a subset, right? That's what you're asking. The answer is, it is still a subset, but not a proper subset. Okay? A proper subset means they have to be different, at least by one element. But a subset means they can be exactly the same. It is still a subset, so it depends on whether it is a proper subset or just a subset of, which are concepts that are in the lecture material, which is, yep, right there. So if and only if B is a subset of A, the expression is B is a subset of A, is true. So you can see there's a bar here, which is kind of like the equal to. It's kind of like less than the or equal to. And then the other one is when B is a proper subset, then we only use this symbol without the bar under, which is the same thing, kind of the same thing as less than. Is that okay? Those are good questions. Very good.
So without the bar denotes just a subset where they could be equivalent sets, and then the bottom one without the bar is a proper subset.
Correct. Yeah, so a proper subset is kind of the same thing as less than. Subset of by itself is less than or equal to. Yep.
Can you explain the bar again?
The bar again?
For the subset symbol, the one has a bar underneath it, one has a bar.
Yeah, with a bar underneath, it simply means that every element in B can be found in A. So they can be exactly the same. The one without the bar means there are some elements in A that is not in B. Okay, just one, okay, but you need at least one element that is in A that is not in B in order for B to be a proper subset of A. Any other questions? No other questions? Okay. So we're going to move on and talk about Cartesian product. Now, Cartesian product is actually very useful. You know, we're going to use the concept of, you know, not only set theory but Cartesian product, you know, quite a bit throughout this entire semester. A Cartesian product is basically a cross product, if you will. Okay, I'm not sure how many people know what is a cross product. Sort of, maybe. Okay. So if you look at the definition, A times B, okay, because that's the Cartesian product. The Cartesian product of A, B as set would consist of tuples. Okay, so each element of the Cartesian product is what we call a tuple, T-U-P-L-E. Okay, a tuple is basically, you can look at it as a list where the ordering is important and the same value can appear multiple times. Is that okay? So if you look at this, you know, formula here, it basically says lowercase a, lowercase b, you know, as a tuple is the form of an element of the Cartesian product. But what is the property of an element of a Cartesian product of two other sets? Well, the property is quite simple. The first item of the tuple has to be found in A, in this case, which is, you know, the set to the left-hand side of the Cartesian product. The second item in the tuple, B, lowercase b, has to be found in the set B, which is the set to the right-hand side of the Cartesian product. That's it. So the example is down here. So if you look at the example, I have, you know, two sets here. One set has 1, 2 as elements. The other set has 4, 5 as elements. So the cross product or the Cartesian product of these two have 4 elements. And the 4 elements will be 1, 4, picking the first out of the first set, the first out of the second set. 1, 5, which is the first out of the first set, the second out of the second set, and 2, 4, which is the second out of the first one out of the second one, and then 2, 5, which is the second of both. Yep.
And in this one, there would be no concern for if the sets happen to just be the same, you would still be able to create.
That is correct. Okay, let me give you an example. That's a good question. So the question is, what if we are making a Cartesian product of 2 identical sets, right? That's basically what you're asking. So let's go ahead and take a look at an example here. So we have one set. Let's just say that this one has A, B as elements, okay? And we make a Cartesian product with another set exactly the same with A, B as elements, okay? So the end result of this, okay, does anyone want to give it a try?
AA.
Yep.
AB.
AA in parentheses, because when we talk about tuples, you have to use round parentheses, because, you know, curly braces are only for sets. Okay, so AA is 1, AB is 1, BA is 1, and then BB is another one. Yep.
So the result is that what if we multiply it by 1 more time with AB? What would be the result?
Ah, that's a very, very good question. Okay, so the question is, do tuples nest or not? Right? That's basically what you're asking. The answer is they do not. Okay, so if you look at this, okay, so the next question, okay, let me just give you the form here. Okay, that's a very good question because I really don't know exactly whether it's right associative or left associative, because that would change the structure of the tuple in a tuple. Okay, so assuming it is left associative, which is most operators are left associative, so this will give you A, but then you have another paren around that. Okay? But it will end up with how many elements? Okay? If I just want to count the number of elements in the Cartesian product of three of the same set but appearing 3 times in the Cartesian product, how many elements are we talking about? 2 to the power of 8 in this case. Okay? 2 to the power of 3, which is 8. Just 8. Yep.
Does Cartesian product just merely reorders the items, or does it do any mathematical action?
There's no mathematical action.
Just
it really
reordering.
is just pick one out of one, pick one out of the other one, put them together where the order is important, stash that one in as an element of the Cartesian product, and do the same thing again.
Thank you.
Yep.
The resulting set, you said the order matters, so then the resulting
Inside the set, the
itself is not actually a set, because then once we already have the pair A, B, we really don't need that pair B, A, technically, right?
No. Okay, that's a good question. I'm going to get rid of the 3, the double Cartesian product thing. Okay, in this case, AA is one element, but because it is a tuple. Okay, this is a bad example. These two would be better ones. Okay, so AB as a tuple is unique. It is different from BA as a tuple.
As a tuple, not as a set.
Because it's not a set. AB is an element of the Cartesian product, which is a set. BA is the same thing. It is a tuple, which is an element of the Cartesian product. But AB as a tuple is different from BA as a tuple. Yep.
Do Cartesian products make sense if the 2 sets are not made of numbers?
Absolutely. There's no reason why it does not.
So in practice, how would that look if we were to use that in a program or in theory somewhere?
Well, that's a good question. What is a number? No, I'm really asking the question. What is a number? A number is nothing more than a way to represent a value. Right? In other words, we are really stuck with the concept of numbers, and a lot of times we equate the concept of a number with the concept of a value. Okay? I'll give you an example here. How many stars do we have?
3.
What is 3? It's a number. Okay? But you cannot tell me how many stars there are without language. Okay? That's a language too, because I'm interpreting the number of fingers. Okay? Because somebody else may have a different way to express 3. Okay? So this, now we say 3. Okay? The actual quantity of stars is a value. But when you look at this is a number. This is a way to represent the quantity, the value. Is that okay? But I can say this is 1, 1 base 2. Right?
Yeah.
1, 1 in base 2 is also a number. It represents the same value as 3 in base 10. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Does everybody kind of understand the difference between a value as opposed to a number? Who am I?
Who do you want to be?
It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. Who am I? Well, you guys would answer TAC. But TAC is a name. It is a label. It is a symbol to represent me when you want to tell other people something about TAC. TAC is an awful teacher. Okay? Okay, fine. but it is a representation because you cannot drag me with you while you are doing that discussion and say, hey, this person is a bad teacher. You want to be able to just say, okay, so and so is a bad teacher, right? So tag is just a name to represent me. It is not a pointer. It's beyond a pointer. Okay, it's just a symbol to represent me. But I'm also known as in Cantonese. Okay, but that's me too. I'm also known as employee 0006887. That's me too. Different ways to represent, to say, refer to that person. I'm referencing that person. Is that okay? So that's why we kind of have to think about this and say, well, what can we use in a set? It can be anything.
So what is tag and base 2?
Tag in base 2? Are we talking about absinthe or are we talking about or are we looking at the pixels? Right? Because you can look at the tag, okay, and pixelate this portion, and those zeros and ones become tag also. So once again, representation versus what you are referring to. Okay? So I am glad that we have this discussion because these are really kind of important things that you keep it separate. Value versus the representation, which are numbers. Yep.
Question. What's the upside A means? Like for the homework we did it? Yes.
For all?
For all?
Yep.
But isn't it like a dash as well?
A dash?
When we were going through the, we